What is the lie of porn? Hi, I'm Andrew Rodriguez, and welcome to Psycho Bible. And this is another Reflession, a reflection on a therapy session. And sometimes I have these ideas that pop in my head, or a phrase that comes to me in the middle of a session with a client, and even sometimes I kind of impress myself. And so, as I was working with a client last night, working through a fantasy and a moment of experiencing lust and gaining some insight, I just topped off our conversation with this statement. And I figured, that was pretty good. I'm going to do a video on that. So, what is the lie of porn and of lustful fantasy, of looking at others with the intent of lust? The lie is perceiving is receiving. What do I mean by that? What is your fantasy or the idea that fuels your lustful gaze? Okay, so let's go to a client example. Alright, got a client who he's at the gym and he deals with same-sex attraction, same-sex arousal templates. And so he's at the gym and he craves seeing men with their shirts off so he can see their chest hair. Or even if they even have a shirt on, if he can just see a little bit of the chest hair underneath their shirt. Or even more so if they have a shirt off and they can see the chest hair coming down and connecting with their happy trail, which connects to their pubic hair. This gets him aroused. Now why? Because the chest hair, I mean, this is pretty unique to men. Obviously, I imagine women can have some degree of chest hair, but this is definitely an aspect of masculinity. Chest hair comes upon boys when they become men, upon puberty and the testosterone. So it's fair to say, across cultures and throughout time, chest hair is a marker of masculinity. And my client has a deep hunger for affirmation of his masculinity, coming from an insecurity about his masculinity. So he desires to have his own masculinity affirmed. The lie of the lust is that if he can just see the chest hair, the masculinity that the man has will become his own. He'll possess that man's masculinity just by beholding it, just by seeing a marker of his masculinity. And so seeking out and perceiving meaning receiving through the senses, his sight, touch, if you were to come close enough and touch the man's chest, to smell his body in some way, whatever the case may be, to perceive it through his senses, the idea is that that will then give him what he is beholding. He will become what he sees, what he beholds. But this isn't just unique to guys with same-sex attraction. Let's use another example. So perhaps you're a man dealing with opposite-sex attraction, lust issues, and objectifying women. And so you see a woman with a low-cut shirt and start craving catching a glimpse of her cleavage. What's the fantasy? Well, there could be a couple. One may be the idea that if you can see her cleavage, then it fulfills this idea, this longing for her to be revealing herself to you. If I can see the cleavage, that means she is choosing to reveal herself to me. She's being intimate with me. And that then means that I'm worthy of a special relationship with her. And there's an affirmation of your masculinity through that. Another idea, another fantasy, is a bit more aggressive or nefarious. That if you see her cleavage without her consent or awareness, without her voluntarily showing it, then you've gained some sort of power or mastery over her. But either way, whether it's because she's revealing it to you, or like the idea is that she's revealing it to you, or that you're catching her unawares and you're seeing it through some sort of covert means, either way, the fantasy is contingent on seeing her cleavage. So if you see it, it automatically means you receive it. You receive what that affirmation is that you're hungering. The affirmation of that you're special enough to be intimate, to gain entry into her inner world, or the affirmation that you're tough, you're powerful, you're so authoritative, and that you can get whatever you want. So different fantasies, but both are contingent on you seeing it. So there's the message, there's the allure within the porn or the lustful gaze. Perceiving is receiving. But is it? Just because you see it doesn't mean you're actually acquiring that thing you're craving. You know this deep down. To make the fantasy powerful, you basically have to suspend reality, but you have to burst that bubble. I tell my clients that my job is to help them live in reality. And the first reality here is that perceiving is not receiving. You will not obtain the thing you're craving by looking at that person or that person's body part. That's the whole idea of objectification. You're reducing a whole person who's so much more than their body, but reducing them just to their body, or literally to just a part. Some of the guys I'm working with, when I ask them to go to a fantasy, they don't even think of a whole fantasy, they just go to a body part, and they just focus on that body part. And it can be a little tough for them to realize there is a fantasy in there. The fantasy may not always be so obvious, so you got to think to yourself, what is it that I think I'm gaining by beholding this body part? Whether it's this man's chest and his hair, whether it's his penis, whether it's this woman's cleavage or her private, what is it that I believe I am acquiring by beholding these parts? What do I think it is that she's giving to me, or that I believe I'm taking from him or from her? So if you want true freedom, you have to get to what is the fantasy and then face the facts that perceiving is not going to give you what you're desiring, what you're craving in the fantasy. But that's not all. There's another reality to accept. Most of the time, the thing that you're craving in the fantasy, in the lust, in the pornography, you already have. You're just not perceiving it. Usually because you're looking in the wrong direction. You're looking into that other person to give you that thing that you think you don't have, or you're thinking you have to do something to get it, but you probably already have it. Alright, let's look at the first example. The man who has such insecurity about his masculinity that he thinks he needs to, not that he thinks this consciously, emotions are driven more by the unconscious, but once we dive deep, we can deconstruct it and realize, okay, there is a belief here. It was not a consciously chosen belief, but it came in at probably a very early age, and then it became eroticized in puberty. Most likely, this is what occurred. So, sidebar. But there's an insecurity about masculinity, and that is then what drives the craving to behold the masculinity in other men. But you have to accept this other reality if you want freedom. You are already masculine. First off, you're a man. There's already a degree of masculinity, an acceptable degree of masculinity in you just by virtue of being a man. No man is more man than you are. You have all the necessary traits to be male. Now, as for the traits, the personality traits, the physical traits of masculinity, you probably have masculine traits that you're not even acknowledging. Probably because you've got too narrow a definition of masculinity. Like I've mentioned in other videos, we tend to idealize and idolize a certain archetype of masculinity, the warrior archetype. So we look for the man who is strong and powerful and aggressive and a warrior, whether it's a warrior in the boardroom or a warrior on the playing field or the actual battlefield. So we're just looking for the man who seems like he's the most aggressive and powerful and domineering, dominant. And I'm not going to deny that that's not a feature of masculinity, but that's not the only one. There are other masculine archetypes, such as the gardener, shepherd archetype, the one who cares for the earth, who brings forth life, who cares for animals who need help being tended to, being cared for. Obviously, we have that leads into the husband and father archetype, the one who lays down his life to care for others. The lover archetype, the man who pursues the woman's heart, who's willing to go into the unknown of her heart, as mysterious as it may be. There's the poet-artist archetype, the one who creates. The first thing we know of God is that He is creator, and He's made us in His image. So when you're an artist, through whatever medium you may use, you are imaging God and His creativity. And we diminish that. We say, oh, the arts, that's for girlies to see men, that's the realm of girls, that's touchy-feely crap. No, that's masculine. To be the one who brings things into being, who creates order, who takes these different elements, whether you're working in oils or paints or mixed media, or if you're working with words or sounds, you're taking things that are undifferentiated and you're bringing them into an order that creates something beautiful that blesses others. That's masculine. And then there's the philosopher archetype, the one who thinks deeply about things and can offer wisdom that blesses others. In general, masculinity is relational. It's about being the one who moves into the unknown in order to create space and order that blesses others, and puts himself at risk as he does that. And so you may not always appear to be the warrior who goes out and slays the dragon, but there are other applications of that core of relational masculinity. And you probably have it, you just aren't acknowledging it. And maybe others in your life haven't acknowledged it. But acknowledge it you must if you want freedom. Let's look at the second example, the man with the eroticization of woman or her cleavage. The esteem or the affirmation of your masculinity that you're seeking in that fantasy, you already have it. It may not be as tangible or as intense or frequently expressed by others as you would like, but you could probably survey your life and find evidence of such affirmation. It may not seem like it's enough, but you must learn to be content in any situation if you want to live in reality. That starts with expressing gratitude for what you do have. Now, you know what? I desire this woman to reveal herself to me. Okay? Perhaps there's ways in which other women have opened themselves up to you, that have affirmed you as a good gift to them. Maybe it's a sister. Maybe it's a female coworker or a friend. Maybe your mother. Maybe the elderly lady at church. Okay, it might not be in a romantic way all the time, but there's still a way in which you can get that affirmation that, yes, a woman does see me as special, as one who's worthy of being opened up to. If the fantasy is more of the one who conquers and who is going to be seen as powerful and dominant, there's a true application of that must be acknowledged. That, yeah, you probably do have some mastery, some, not tyranny, but some way in which you do have efficacy in your world. And you need to appreciate that for the good gift that it is, not as a weapon or a tool to dominate others. So there might be some ways you have to do your frame, your lens. But if you survey your life, you could probably find some ways to affirm and have gratitude for the very affirmations that you're seeking. And maybe, whether we're dealing with the same sex attraction or the opposite sex attraction, lust, maybe all you can point to is the fact that your Heavenly Father sees you and delights in you. He and His full love for you must be the foundation of your security in yourself. You must be rooted and established in His love. So like I said, I wanted to keep this brief today. So to review, those are the two realities to accept. One, perceiving is not receiving. That craving you start to feel to see the person's chest, whether it's a man to see his chest hair, whether it's a woman to see her cleavage, or whatever body part that you have a tendency to objectify to get something else. Once you understand what the fantasy is, you have to remind yourself, I'm not going to get that by seeing this, by looking at this person as just an object, by reducing them to an object for my gratification. I'm not actually going to get what I'm craving from that action. So, perceiving is not receiving. And two, you don't need to receive it because you already have it. And that's what you must accept to really find greater levels of freedom. So I just want to make this a brief encouragement to you, to those you may be discipling or working with who struggle with porn or lust, chronic masturbation, fantasy, and for yourself, of course, because this may be why you came to this channel in the first place. This may be an area of struggle for you. So as we wrap up, please know that Jesus loves you freely, fully. He gives a full gift of Himself to you, and He fully delights in you, faithfully and fruitfully.